Are you having a hard time completing Dizzy, Ricochet, and Weasel? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys the best build to be able to complete this encounter. Etsuva, this is LaserBolt, and congratulations guys, because if you made it here, you defeated Boomer. High five. Now, you guys are probably wondering, what is the best build to defeat Dizzy, Ricochet, and Weasel? What should I actually be looking to equip? What should I disequip? And what is the best and most effective way to actually complete this encounter? Just as a quick heads up, guys, this is not a guide on how to complete the encounter. If you want to know how to complete the encounter, I already made a video for that. I'll link it in the description. This is a guide on what you should be looking to equip as far as gear, talents, and what is the best and most effective way to actually getting this completed. Now, before we dive in completely onto this guide, I want to remind you guys about our monthly giveaway. We're giving away a free pair of Ghost Recon 70s for the console of your choice. To enter, it's super easy. All you have to do is click the link down below that says Join Bolt Nation, and you will be automatically entered. So good luck to everybody that's participating. Alright, so now it's time for us to dive in and talk about this encounter. Now, this encounter is very interesting because it relies very heavily on how well each side is doing. So you want to make sure that whenever you make a team or when you're trying to join a team, your build is at least suitable to help the team and not hinder the team from completing the encounter. We're going to be talking about what I like to call the Triplet Factor. The reason why I call this the Triplet Factor is because technically there are 3 mini bosses, or 2 mini bosses and 1 major boss in this encounter. So what exactly is the Triplet Factor? So the Triplet Factor, we are going to start off with the things I believe to be priority when it comes to completing this encounter. And the first one is DPS. Damage is king to this encounter. As opposed to the Boomer where survivability was king, damage is the most important feature in this encounter, because not having the right amount of damage not only is going to make this encounter take longer than it should, but it's also going to make it very difficult for you guys to complete the encounter when you have to face the final boss. The reason why damage is so important is because this encounter has a mechanic that tells you when you could do DPS and when you can't do DPS. So you want to make sure that when you're allowed to do DPS, or when the orange smoke drops by, you want to make sure you're outputting as much damage as you can, because you want to get the encounter completed as quickly as you can, because it does get a bit overwhelming when you have multiple ads coming and you're taking too long to kill the final boss. In addition to that, the majority of the time when you're about to kill the boss, there are going to be at least 1 to 2 players down in this encounter, so you want to make sure that the rest of the team is able to do enough DPS to kill the final boss. Number 2 is health. You want to make sure that you have not only a good amount of health and a good amount of armor, but you also want to make sure that you're able to restore your health and have something that is going to be able to save your life when you are low on health. So that would be priority number 2. Now that we went ahead and covered the Triplet Factor, let's talk about what type of weapons are actually very viable for this encounter. Of course, if you guys have been watching my videos, you guys already know that the meta is pretty much AR and LMG. Those are going to be always one of my top recommendations. For this particular encounter though, I believe the AR has a little bit of upper hand from the LMG, and you're probably wondering why. The reason being is because the LMG is really good at a very close quarter, sort of a little bit really good when it comes to mid-range, but when you actually have to shoot across the room, it does hurt you a little bit, because you're going to be, you're going to be all over the screen. That's even on PC. You're still very skippy when it comes on PC or a console. Now, the reason the AR, I recommend the AR a little bit more than the LMG, is because the AR will allow you to still land a little bit more precise shots when you're shooting from longer distance. It's actually a little bit more reliable and gives you a little bit more flexibility on landing more damage from far away than it would from an LMG. Don't get me wrong, the LMG is still a very good choice, because for the majority of the first part of the encounter, you are going to be at a very close quarter encounter, but when it comes to fighting the final boss, that is when the IR comes viable. I would suggest maybe running something like an AR LMG build. You could run both weapons at the same time in combination, and this will give you a really good advantage because when it comes to the first portion of the boss, you're able to use your LMG. When it comes to the second portion, you're able to pull out your AR, and when he gets closer, you pull out your LMG once again. So there's a very viable setup that I would suggest. Now, usually I don't like to suggest specific specialists for, different encounters, but for this one, I believe there is a specialist that does have an advantage over all of them, and that is going to be the sharpshooter specialist. The reason why I believe this has an advantage is because it gives you the advantage of using a sniper. So if you're running the build, like I said, if you're running an AR and an LMG build, you'll still have an option to use a sniper. And you're probably wondering, why is a sniper viable? The reason the sniper is viable because you're going to be able to do two things. Number one, at the beginning of the encounter, you'll be able to do damage to the sniper that spawns above. In addition to that, when you get to the final boss, there's going to be times when you have to shoot across the map. If you actually spray this guy with some TAC 50s, it's going to knock off a lot of his health bar, making the encounter easier due to the fact that you have to do a little bit less damage and takes a little bit less time to complete than you would normally. Well, now that we already know which weapon we're going to be using, let's talk about the attributes. What attributes are we going to be using for this particular build? Now, I actually have two sets of attributes, and I'm going to explain them in the video. The reason why we have two is because I want to make sure that you guys are being able to stay alive for this encounter. But if you guys are not having an issue with staying alive, then you're definitely going to want to run the one I suggest. So let's talk about attributes. So for this particular encounter, I am going to suggest a 7, 6, and any build. Now you're probably wondering, why do we need a 7? Why do we need a 6? And why are you suggesting this? Because we're going to be trying to tap into specific talents. Number one, we're going to be trying to get the talent Berserker to actually proc within this build. Now, the reason why Berserker is so viable is because it reads the following. It says 10 plus weapon damage for every 20% of max armor depleted. Now, in this encounter, you will be getting shots, and you will be losing armor. And what this is going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to get 10 plus weapon damage for every 20% of your max armor that's depleted. Now, this is very important because you want to make sure that you're not only surviving, but you want to make sure that as you're taking damage from the enemies, you're also being able to output as much damage as you can. Remember, the more damage you're outputting, the more faster this encounter is going to go. This encounter is actually meant to be completed really fast because the longer you stay or the longer you prolong it, it's going to be more difficult for you to complete. Now, the only thing with Berserk is that it actually requires a 7 on red. So that's the reason why we're trying to go with that 7-6 build. Now, the reason we're going into the 6 is because we want to be tapping into patience. Now, patience doesn't really become too viable until we get to the final stage of the boss, where you will be in cover very frequently, and you're going to want to make sure you're regenerating your health, which leads me on to step number 2 that we talked about, the triplet factor, which was health. Now, we're only going to be getting our health from two things. Of course, we want to make sure that we have a decent amount of health and a decent amount of armor in our build. So as a suggestion, I would actually want to suggest that you at least have 200 plus armor and at least 50k health. That would be the targets you want to go for. If you have over 200k armor and over 50k health, high five, guys, you guys are doing it correctly. If you have lower than this, it's time for you guys to start farming and finding gear to get you up to that level. Now, like I said earlier, where exactly are we going to be getting our health from? We're going to be getting our health from one thing, which is the patience talent, and we're going to make sure that our skills have the following. Number one, you want to make sure you have a revive hive. This is going to be very important because I'm pretty sure, and I can almost guarantee that this is going to definitely help you out a lot. And number two, you want to make sure you have a chem launcher. You're going to want to make sure you have this because these are the only 3 things we're going to be using for our health. Patience as a talent, our revive hive in case we go down, and of course the chem launcher when we need to heal ourselves. The reason why we're going with the chem launcher over a drone or a seeker mine is due to the fact that we're able to have multiple heals instead of just having one in succession. Now let's talk about what type of damage we want to be looking as far as our stats. How much damage do we want to have? Do we want to have a lot of DTE? Do we want to have a lot of weapon damage? What exactly are we looking for here? Of course, DTE is very important for this encounter. So just like the boomer encounter, we want to at least have 70 plus DTE. If you have more, high five. If you have less than that, then you're definitely going to want to try to get as much DTE as you can. Remember, always when you start with DTE or damage to elites, you want to make sure you're always looking at your mask to see what your base start point is. After that, all it matters is just applying as much as hard-hitting talents as you possibly can in items that you haven't had compromised, and you guys should be good to go. Now remember guys, since we are running multiple weapons on this build, we're running a AR and an LMG, it's very hard for me to tell you guys, put this amount of number on an AR, put this amount of number on an LMG, because we're running both weapons at the same time. So for this particular build, if you're already coming from Boomer and you already got the 30 plus for the AR, then you're fine, just stick with that. But if you're trying to see where you could optimize this build, I would highly suggest you look at something like all weapon damage. All weapon damage, if you have it roughly between 30 to 40, you guys should be good, because your LMG and your AR will be doing almost identical damage when it comes to this. I would also look at critical hit chance and critical hit damage to kind of compensate for the specific weapon damage type for a specific weapon. As you guys should already know, this is episode 2 of our best build for each individual encounter within the raid. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Boomer one, highly recommend you guys check that out, and I'll link it down below in the description. Episode 3 and episode 4 will be coming out shortly, so make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you want to get notified when these are released. I do hope you guys did find this video helpful and informative. I hope you guys did learn something. If you guys are struggling with this encounter, let me know in the comment section down below what difficulty you're having, or what do you feel that's actually avoiding you from actually completing this encounter. If you guys are having a problem of not finding a team to actually play with, make sure you guys join our Discord channel. We have a very nice LFG system over there where you guys are able to find people for multiple consoles of your choice. I'll leave the link down below in the description. I want to give you guys a big massive thank you, because I know you guys are going to slap that like button like if your life depended on it. And I also want to thank you guys for sharing this video with your friends and helping them actually complete this encounter and being able to complete the raid and hopefully get that Eagle Bearer they so desire. If you want to show additional love and support, do consider joining the Bolt Nation. To join, it's super easy. All you got to do is click the link down below where it says Join Bolt Nation, and you guys will be able to unlock exclusive features only found on the LaserBolt channel. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget WGATAP, and I will catch you guys on the next video.